Hey everyone, we're really happy to see you here and thanks for joining our webinar today. Finally, we have this chance to have this get together, and I'm pretty sure you will be really amazed by what our speakers are going to present today. And first of all, let me introduce who we are having today. And while I'm doing that, I also would like to ask you to type in the chat box which country you are from, and maybe some kind of your experience for us to get to know each other better. So let me introduce our first speaker, our guest speaker. Surely she has just a long list of titles, but I would say the first idea which comes to my mind, and after watching some videos on LinkedIn and reading her blog posts, I would say she's a language coaching rock star. This is the idea how I see this person. Please meet amazing Carrie McKinnon, co-founder of International Language Coaching Association. Hi, Carrie. And also we are having today Nataliya Vizir, who is going to present the idea what we can use, what kind of techniques we can use in our classrooms. Hi, Nataliya.
Hello.
Ladies. Hi. Yeah, and I can see we have our first comments. Hello, Ina. I know Ina, Ukraine. We have Oksana from Ukraine, and hopefully we will have more comments now. So, without further ado, yeah, Brazil. Hi, Marcella. Nice to see you here. Ukraine as well. So, without further ado, Carrie, I'm giving you the floor, and I know that you have some nice ideas to share and also some kind of bonuses for today. And we are all ears and ready to get all those gems you've prepared for us.
Thank you so much, Ava, and thank you for your very kind introduction. I really, until you said the name, I wasn't sure if you were talking about Nataliya or myself, because I see Nataliya so much as a language coaching rock star as well. And thank you for inviting me here today to talk about language coaching.
Yeah, Nataliya, maybe you can share a couple of words and then we'll go straight to you.
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am honored to be here and to share some of my experience of language coaching tools and using them in a classroom environment. And I'm going to share the things that really work. I have my own experience and they proved to be useful. And I believe that those tools can be used even by people who don't have training in language coaching, because I try to choose something that is easy to implement. And yeah, Carrie will tell you more about the concept of language coaching and coaching approach to language teaching. And I will share some practical stuff. So I hope you enjoy this and I hope you find it useful.
Yeah, thank you, Nataliya. So, Carrie, we're kind of disappearing from the screen and I'm adding your presentation. Wishing you luck and see you in 10-15 minutes. Great.
Okay, leaving me on my own. Thank you. All right. Oh, good. Okay, great. So, hello, everyone. When it comes to language coaching, there are many different ideas about what it is because it is such an emerging and exciting field. Many people are identifying as language coaches. People know that how they were taught to teach is not what they're doing now. They've stepped outside of it. Lots of things have changed. And so for that reason, a lot of the time when I talk about language coaching, I have to start with definitions, right? And so this first definition that you're looking at here on the screen is a definition for what is coaching, right? Sounds kind of basic. There are many definitions for coaching. This is one that I think is particularly relevant to language coaching. So I'll read it out. Extending traditional training methods to include focus on an individual's needs and accomplishments, close observation, and impartial and non-judgmental feedback on performance. Sounds a bit like a sports coach or a business coach there, right? So this is our general baseline for what coaching is. Please feel free to look up and find all of the many definitions for coaching. Next up, we're going to get into what is language coaching? Now, this is the #1 question when I say I'm co-founder of the International Language Coaching Association, from academic to private sector to all these. Oh, okay, what is that again? Tell me, what is language coaching? So here we go. When we started the International Language Coaching Association in 2019, we needed a definition for language coaching. We couldn't find one anywhere. So we pulled together a panel of experts, people we knew that were huge with coaching and education, people that have written books about it, people that were already venturing into this territory. And we absolutely labored over the definition you can see there on the screen. So I'll read that as well. Language coaching is a learner-led process aimed at creating optimal target language acquisition while working towards effective international communication skills in order to reach future-related goals. Okay, so this is a definition for language coaching. We needed to define one. We don't claim that this is the definition for language coaching, but this is a definition for language coaching that has now been published since 2019 or 2020, around there. You can cite this, and hopefully we're going to see many more definitions that are going to arise of language coaching, just as we see with the definition of coaching. This is our definition for it. Since that time, we've gone on to train teachers of many languages from all over the world in language coaching, how to upskill and apply coaching into a teacher or teaching setting, language teaching setting. And what has emerged for us is the incredible need for a new definition, something that we have referred to from the very beginning as a language coaching approach. All right. And so I'm going to read this as well. A language coaching approach is the integration of coaching tools into a language teaching environment with the goal of fostering a shared learning responsibility between the learner and instructor. Learner autonomy and teaching effectiveness are enhanced through this unified approach. Now, this definition is currently undergoing the laborious process that the language coaching definition went through. It could change, it could evolve. This is where we're at with it right now. The reason that we're here with it, and the reason that we need these definitions and this new definition for a language coaching approach, is because I want you to imagine a scale with teaching at one end and coaching at the other. Everything that happens in between that, when you begin to move along that scale and integrate coaching tools into your teaching, you are in the realm of a language coaching approach. And that is a case scenario that we see very often in our line of work and in what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to move on a little bit and talk about why now. There's something that I refer to as the 21st century learning ecosystem. So the way we learn, what we learn, how we learn, all these things have evolved and changed recently, and education is needing to get with that. Language education is needing to get with that. So these are some elements of that 21st century learning ecosystem that we believe are important. First of all, there is a greater emphasis, greater than ever, on communicative competence in real world language use, right? So this impacts the way we're teaching, the materials we're using, all of that. There's also an increased use of technology and digital tools to enhance language learning. These could include things like online language courses, language learning apps, exchange platforms, YouTube, these types of things, right? So that's hugely come in and shaped what we're doing and how we're doing it as well. There's more focus on learner-centered approaches that cater to individual needs and interests as well. There is a recognition now more than ever of the importance of cultural competence and intercultural communication and language learning. There's also a greater integration of authentic materials and resources, such as news articles, podcasts, social media. All of this is coming into our language teaching as well. We've got more attention to the development of soft skills, alongside language skills. And these could be like critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, the way we're expressing ourselves, all of that. And then finally, there is more emphasis than ever on developing learner autonomy and self-regulated learning skills, such as goal setting, self-monitoring, self-instruction, self-reinforcement, all of these things. And that's happening because of everything that we just talked about, especially that technology and digital tools. So this is why now, this is why language coaching is having the moment that it's having, and we have this organic practitioner-led movement. People all over the world self-identifying as language coaches, some of them already with coach training, some of them with no coach training, that are just doing things differently because of this new 21st century learning ecosystem. So that's to contextualize it a bit. To talk just briefly about some of the differences or main differences between language teaching and language coaching. Before I get into this, I do want to just mention that we believe that language coaching enriches language teaching, not necessarily to replace it. These are two different activities, and we don't make a value judgment on which one is necessarily better. However, they are different, and how we do these activities are different. So we're going to look at some of the key differences here. When you are teaching, there are stakeholder goals. Okay, so if you're teaching for a language company or a higher education institution, there's going to be these objectives and goals that are coming in. When you are coaching, the goals that are driving what's happening and driving your sessions are the learner goals. So that's a very important first distinction. Secondly, in language teaching, we organize the teaching around proficiency levels. Everybody knows that. We've got our CEFR, we've got our, beginner, intermediate, advanced, all of this thing, right? It's hard for me to even remember these. Just kidding. I teach all the time still. So we organize ourselves around levels. And in language coaching, when proficiency levels are different, for example, or when we're working with a unique learner or group of learners, we are more oriented towards the tools that we use, right? Some of what Nataliya is going to talk about a little bit later, the application of this. The tools change based on the actual learners, as opposed to organizing ourselves around these proficiency levels and then bringing in the content. Speaking of content and language teaching, we need content. We expect content. We rely on content very often. And in language coaching, we don't. The content's gone. We do have coaching questions, which is one of those tools. Okay, it's one of the tools that we use in coaching. And questions are not meant to completely replace content. That needs a mental transformation to let go of content in a language coaching session. And this is really where we see the sliding back and forth with the language coaching approach. But questions are something that we do use in place of, let's say, content. Now, finally, in language teaching, we all know to move up those proficiency levels to correspond to the content and the stakeholder goals, we have assessments. And in language coaching, we don't. The assessment is a self-reflection process of the learner. Right. So those are the differences. I hope that was clear. I'm trying to keep to time. And so I'm going to wrap up there. I do want to mention for anyone that is on this or watching this within the next few, let's say, weeks or however long until we sell out, we have a language coaching conference in Paris on June 17th and 18th. It's 2 days, and it is this year, this spring, and we have created a coupon code for you if you would like to register and if you're interested to come and be a part of this movement and learn more about language coaching through workshops and panel discussions and plenary discussions, and really to meet up and join with our community, which is a lot of fun. So you've got the web address here, www.ilcaglobal.com. That's the conference registration page. And at the bottom, if you go to register, you can use the coupon code TatarovaLab, and there you go. You will get a percentage off of your ticket. So Thank you, everyone, for listening. Here's a couple places you can find us, and I'm going to finish now.
Yes, thank you so much for this presentation. And actually, I told everyone that in case you have some questions to ask, please grab this chance and ask. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have anything to ask Carrie, please do in the chat box and we can discuss. We have a couple of minutes for it. And also about the conference. Before we started, I said that I have an idea of going to Paris and join this movement and to see what this all about. So, and I still have it really. So, guys, if there is someone who would like to join this trip, please let me know. Maybe it will be possible for us to organize like a group journey. Maybe we can go as a group, and then we'll ask for more discount from Kerry. We'll see. Yeah. So please let me know your thoughts. It would be nice. So you can send me an email or talk to me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Yeah, thank you so much. I can see that we don't have questions, which is, I don't know, good or bad, but yeah, great idea. I can see. So you see, Kerry, as I said, like people are really excited about the idea of joining your conference in Paris. Yeah,
great.
Yeah, Nataliya. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
hello again. Yeah. Carrie, thank you so much for this very quick overview. It's great. It makes my job easier now because I think even those who had no idea about coaching in teaching environment are now more prepared. So thank you so much. That was great.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, see you. Yes, Natalie, I'm giving you the floor and adding your presentation to the screen. And I can see, by the way, there is an idea coming from Pinar, and I know Pinar is from Turkey, that she also has an idea to be there. Who knows? Maybe we can meet all together.
That would be fantastic.
I may have a question from Ina Piankovska, and the question is for Kerry. So I'm not sure what we will do then.
Okay, so if Carrie is still here, she can answer.
She has just left. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm
right.
giving you the floor, please.
Thank you. All right. So I'll talk a little about coaching tools in a language classroom. As I mentioned, the basic tools that can be used starting today or tomorrow. You can start practicing them. But before we do that, this is what we will talk about. I'll explain the difference between language coding tools and language teaching tools. Then we'll talk a little bit about tools and modals. What is the difference between them in coaching context? I'll touch upon two modals, grow and whoop. Whoop is often called just a technique, not a modal. And then we'll go to basically the tools, my favorite tools, the easiest to use scaling, and we'll discuss basics of coaching questions. So off we go. Now, when we talk about teaching tools and coaching tools, as Carrie mentioned, these two sets of tools, these two activities, they are completely different and they do not necessarily replace each other. For instance, I like to say that you cannot hammer a nail or drive a nail into a wall using coaching tools. You have a hammer for this and it works much better. However, when you have coaching, you can help yourself or help your coachee understand whether they are strong enough to pick up that hammer, whether they have chosen the right spot for the nail, and whether they are ready to take the responsibility for the hole in the wall. Anyway, so when we are talking about teaching tools, you all know them. You use them every single day. You've been trained to use them, no matter what training you had. They are used in the classroom. They are used when you prepare homework for your students, and they are based on teaching methodology. Coaching tools, they are based on coaching competencies. While teaching tools are usually planned and controlled, maybe not 100% controlled, but for the most part, they are controlled. The coaching tools are unplanned and uncontrolled. When you use teaching, you have an expected outcome. You have a lesson plan and you know what you expect. However, when you have coaching sessions or when you use a coaching tool in your classroom, you do not have expectations. What you have is your intention and your purpose, but you never know what you're going to get. Teaching tools are mostly teacher-led. I wouldn't say like 100% again, because there is the strong movement towards learner autonomy, but coaching tools are fully learner-led. And while teaching tools focus on language system and skills and functions like vocabulary, grammar, developing reading skills, and so on, coaching tools will focus on the learner and everything around the learning process, around the goals or certain issues learners might have with the language. For instance, motivation, procrastination, blocks, frustration with the language, and so on. So I hope this is clear, but if you have any questions, drop them in. Now, the difference between coaching models and coaching tools. Models are something bigger. They are more like a framework, and you work within that framework. Quite often, these models are borrowed. They come from other fields in areas of coaching, business coaching, sports, communications coaching, anything. Lots of them have been described. There's really a lot of information, general information on coaching models. Most famous are Grow, Oscar, Clear, Fuel, Whoop, and so on. But there are also coaching models developed specifically for language teaching, and ILCA are working on that. They have their Beacon model, which is very interesting. Now, models, as I mentioned, are larger. They are used as the framework, and it doesn't mean that you have to implement the entire model during one session. They can be stretched over time. And experienced coaches, they adapt, they modify the model to suit the learner needs. However, there's a downside. Coaching models do require some more training and skill. So in order to implement and to use effectively a coaching model, you would probably need some more training. Now, when we talk about coaching tools, they too are often borrowed from other areas of coaching, and they again are adapted for language teaching environment, so they are used as language coaching tools. But since they are small, just like screwdrivers and hammers, they can be used anytime during a session, whenever you feel you need them. It could be at the start of the session, in the middle, at the end. So you can just have a standard lesson, a planned lesson, and then you can have a little bit of coaching here and there. So that is the tool. It's something smaller, something easier to pick up, right? And as a consequence, they are easier to use and they require less skill. So a teacher with no prior training in coaching can start using coaching tools in their classroom. The same tools can be used as parts of various coaching models, which makes them quite universal. Now, I mentioned that I will touch upon the models a little bit. Grow model is quite old. As you can see, it was developed in 1980s. Again, it was developed for business coaching, but it can be easily adapted to a language classroom. For instance, you have GROW. G stands for goals or goal. Then R, reality. O, options. Sometimes it's also about opportunities and obstacles. And W, will or way forward. if you think about a language classroom, what happens? You can have a learner with certain goals, and you ask the learner about the goals. You can ask the learner to set a long-term goal, then short-term goals, and you can break those goals down into smaller steps. So that's where you discuss the goal. You will also discuss the importance of this goal for the learner. And here you will use the tools. You will use coaching questions. You will use scaling, for example. Then the next step is the reality. Why is reality important? To move from point A to point B, you need to be aware of the situation in the point A, right? And that's why you have to discuss the reality with your coachee, with your student. So you would analyze the situation, the language level that is already there. You would probably talk to the learner about what they have already in order to achieve their goals. Do they have the time for learning? Do they have the motivation? Do they have I don't know, a favorite language application that they use for learning? Anything that is here in their reality and that is relevant to the learner's goal. You can also ask the learner about what they can do in English. For example, their goal is to be able to deliver presentations and do it smoothly. So you ask, what do you already have? What is your reality in terms of delivering presentations? And the learner could say, okay, I can plan a presentation, but I have to translate it from my first language. That is their reality. But they want to do it differently. They want to prepare the presentation in English straight away. Now, when we move on to options, you would discuss the things that your learner can do, what options they have. It is advised to ask the questions and wait for the learner to answer. You don't give the options because you're coaching. As teachers, we are praised for knowing things, for giving advice. That's what we are valued for. As a coach, we are valued for asking the right questions and staying quiet. No judging. Okay, we are impartial. So you can ask the learner, what can you do to achieve your goal? What can you stop doing in order to move forward to your goal? What do you think you can start doing? What can you stop doing? What can you do more of, less of? What options do you have? Do you want a speaking club or do you want individual lessons? Do you want group lessons? All of this would be a part of the discussion. And then, way forward. What are your steps? The first steps, the actions. What are you going to do? How are you going to move forward to your goal? And then we talk about time. Anything, any goal is time bound. And this doesn't come from the duration of the course. It comes from the learner, right? Sometimes there are external deadlines, but sometimes it's just purely internal. So you have to discuss that part as well. So it's not just the actions, it has to be very specific. So the learner would probably say that I'm going to take this and this step. And then you would ask, when are you going to do that? Okay, that's an important part. Now, another model that I really like is WHOOP. It has a funny name, but it's science-based and it's actually based on the research in motivation. It has been used in teaching for quite some time, and there's also research about usage of WHOOP in teaching, not just English, just teaching in general. And it has shown some really good results. Basically, WHOOP is about rethinking positive thinking. So it's a very positive approach. the focus here is on what the learner already has in order to achieve their goals. So it's not about discussing problems and getting stuck in the problems, right? You will discuss problems, that's for sure. But the focus is on the future goals and on the resources you have in order to achieve them. The details. Wish. W stands for wish. And this is the goal, what the learner wishes to achieve. The first O is for outcome, the result they want. The second O is for obstacles, anything that prevents or might prevent the learner from achieving their goals. Could be external, but quite often it's internal, like procrastination, lack of time, or just the learner thinking that they lack time for learning. And P stands for plan. And note that there's the formula. If obstacle, then I will. So what happens here? You bring the learner's attention to the fact that they have everything they need to overcome their obstacles. You discuss the possible obstacles, but you also discuss the way the learner will overcome them. Again, there's nothing about the skills, not about the number of words they're going to learn or the grammar they'll cover. This is all about things that are going around language, around the learning process itself. And everything comes from the learner inside, from their ideas, from their thinking. I will not go into detail here, but I add the website where you can look it up. On this website, they have lots of details. They also have videos and demos, how to use this technique. It's more about life coaching, but I'm sure you can adapt it to your learning environment, to your classroom. Now, tools. Going down to tools. Scaling is my favorite because it's the easiest or because it's so universal. I don't have the answer why it is my favorite, but it definitely is. With scaling, you can measure anything. Motivation, progress, usefulness of what you are learning with your student. You can measure confidence. You can measure satisfaction, and satisfaction with anything, with the lesson, with the performance, even with the test results. Carrie mentioned that in teaching, we have assessment. In coaching, we have self-reflection. And here, with scaling, you can bring those two together. For example, a learner takes a end of course test. They get the results. Let's say they got like 80%, right? And you might say, wow, that's a good result. As a teacher, you might say that. But as a coach, you ask the learner, on the scale from 1 to 10, how would you assess your satisfaction with your test results? Okay. For some learners, 80% is fantastic. It's great. They are super happy and they give you a 9 or a 10. Their level of satisfaction is high. It's 9 or 10. For somebody else, it could be 2. I'm not happy at all. I expected at least 90. 80 is like, well, that's not enough for me. And then what you do, you don't leave it there. The whole thing about scaling is that you take the number and you build a short discussion around the learner's numbers. You might go on and you might ask the learner, what do you think you need to do to have a better level of satisfaction with your results? Or what makes this number a 2 for you, or what makes this number a 9 for you. How high do you want this number to be? What can you do to bring it up? And then you can ask, what can I, as your coach, do to bring it up? How can I help you? You don't jump in with your ideas. As a teacher, you have lots of them. I mean, you've been doing this for years, right? And you know how to improve test results. But as a coach, you keep your advice to yourself, right? You are impartial. You don't give advice. You don't give directions. You ask questions and you enable the learner to find their way forward. Now, another thing, the last one here is enoughness, measuring enoughness of what a person already knows and can do. I really like this part because sometimes people come and their goal is very practical. They want to be able to do something in English in a real life situation. It could be getting around in a new place. It could be booking a hotel. It could be small talk at the office. Again, you can work on it until you get it, make it perfect, right? Well, there are always things you can improve with the learner, no matter how high their level is. But you might ask, where is enoughness for you? Okay, is this enough for you at this point? And then the learner gives you the number and you discuss this number. And then you decide whether you need to stay on this particular topic, for example, and improve even more, or whether this is enough for the learner at this point and you can move on to the next goal. I hope this is clear, but if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them at the end. Yeah, so with scaling, just to sum up, you can measure anything. The thing is, scaling is great when you have a conversation around the numbers. It's not about the number itself. It's about what you do with it. Now, coaching questions. A universal tool, but what makes any question a coaching question? Or can any question be a coaching question? Here are some features of coaching questions. They are always open. Yes or no questions are not coaching questions. They are focused on the present moment. What it means is that you listen actively to your learner, your student, your client. You are in the moment. You are in the present with them. And you ask the questions based on their answers in the present. Okay. The ultimate focus is, of course, on achieving their future goals, but you are working with the present. They are focused on the learner. What the learner thinks, believes, finds difficult, the reasons why the learner finds something difficult. It's all about the learner. These questions, they are focused on the learner and they follow their answers, not your list of questions. When you just start using coaching questions in your classroom, you might want to have a list of them just to make it easier for you. But it's not a very good idea to follow the list. It's much better to look for the right question based on the previous answers. And it's not that difficult as it might seem once you understand that the questions come from your curiosity, from interest in the learner and their situation. If you allow yourself to be present in the moment and to become really interested in the learner, not in the curriculum, not in the textbook or your lesson plan, the learner is the priority. And then the questions, they just come themselves. These questions are impartial, non-judgmental, and they never have even a shade of manipulation in them. You do not ask questions to make the learner do what you want them to do. You ask the questions out of curiosity and with a genuine desire to help. These questions are supposed to help the learner find their own way out of a situation, their own way forward. So you don't give directions. As a teacher, you do. So when you change roles, when you say, okay, I'm a teacher now, you give them directions. You tell them what to do, when to do that, and maybe even how much has to be done. But as a coach, you don't do that. The learner decides, and the learner is responsible for the consequences. Now, the questions are also asked one at a time. What I mean here is that you do not bombard your learner with questions. You give them time to find the answers. And silence here is also, in a way, a coaching tool. You give them time and space. Silence could mean that they do not have the answer, but silence could also mean that they are thinking, right? The process, there is some process going on, and there's no need to rush it. Right. Moving on. What do these questions do? First of all, they stimulate thinking. They are thought-provoking. You make the learner think for themselves. By not giving them answers, you stimulate them. For example, when the learner wants to learn something, they want to be able to discuss a certain topic in English or in any other language they're learning, instead of giving them a menu of options or ready-made activities, you ask them, so what do you think could be the best way to do this? Which activities could work for you? And then you wait for the learner to find the answers. So they start thinking whether they need more writing, reading, speaking, watching videos, listening. What do you need? Yeah. What do I, as the learner, need to achieve my goal? The questions, coaching questions, are supposed to empower the learner to move forward. They are, most of the time, they are not pushing, right? So, some people come and they say, okay, I need a teacher who's going to push me. Okay, I want a teacher to push me. No, you are not there to push. You are there to empower the learner to move themselves without your push. You are not at their back, right? Pushing them, you are there on their side. These questions are oriented towards future goals. It's not about being stuck in the past, like past learning experiences. Good, we discuss them, but we do not get stuck there. We move forward. We think about the future goals. These questions also help the learner see the strength they have and the opportunities they have. And they also increase awareness of the situation, of their learning journey as such, of their language level. Now, when do you ask those questions? As I mentioned, you can ask them anytime, whenever you feel they can help you. It's very good to ask them when you're just learning about the learner, when you want to know about their relationship with the language, when you want to know what kind of learner they are, when you're setting the goals together with the learner, exploring options, opportunities, creating a learning plan or a learning map. When you work with issues around learning like motivations, procrastination, and when you get to the assessment part, the reflection, reflecting both on the learning process and on the results of this process. These are perfect times to ask coaching questions. How to ask them? If you've never done this before, you might want to be very honest with your learners and explain that you want to try something new with them, that you're learning about coaching, and ask their permission for that. This is very much in line with the coaching ethics and competencies. So you are honest with your learner. You allow yourself to be vulnerable, even that, and you ask permission. Not all learners want this. I mean, coaching is not a must. Some people come and they want to be taught. They do not want to share the responsibility for their learning. They want the teacher to give them answers. And that's okay if that's exactly what they want. Also, when you ask questions or when you use any coaching tools, when you bring this element of coaching into the classroom, it is very important to think about safety and confidentiality. Explain your learners that anything that happens in the classroom stays in the classroom between you and the learner or the group. The learner needs to feel safe to be able to answer those questions honestly. Again, being impartial, neutrality, no commenting, no judgment. Sometimes you will be surprised by the answers. Sometimes you will really want to say, but that's not true. No. If the learner says, oh, I guess I'm an idiot, this language is horrible, difficult, I hate it. You don't say, no, 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 you're not an idiot. Like, just look at your test results. You wouldn't say that. As a coach, you would probably say, okay, so you think that you cannot do it, or I hear you find the language very difficult. What makes you think that this is so difficult? What exactly is so difficult? No judgment, no comment, right? The question, the answer, then the next question, right? It's not your role to agree or to disagree with what the learner just said. Your role is to find out why the learner is saying this, what is behind their answer on a deeper level. Equality in partnership. As a teacher, you are at the top. You know more. You know how things should be done. There is this hierarchy, like a student and teacher. With coaching, there's partnership and equality. And this has to be shown with the way you act, right? By not giving advice, by not giving directions, you show that you are a partner. And in this partnership, the learner finds their way to their language goals. Then, as a teacher, you will help them polish their skills, learn new vocabulary, explain the grammar. But as a coach, you are equal. You do not know more than the learner does. And some examples of coaching questions. These are questions that can be asked at the stage when you set the goals with the learner. Just have a look at them. You can ask about the learning goals, but also ask why those goals are important for the learner at this point in their life. you can also ask how these goals might impact other areas of their life. And that's a very curious question, because sometimes working, the very process of working on language goals can have a negative impact on a learner's life. And what I mean here is that it requires time, and the time has to be taken away from some other activities. And the learner needs to understand that as well, right? Also, always ask the learner what they already have, right? With the language, especially the English language, it's impossible not to know anything about English, or like not to be able to say a word in English. We all know at least something in English. So what do you already have? How will this help you achieve your goals? Right? Then you can discuss what is missing. The next step, what is missing? What else do you need? Who can support you? What can support you? And then, how can I, as your coach, help you? How can I support you? What can I do? Right. Also, the last question, how will you know that you have achieved these goals? The learner sets their own criteria for achieving goals. Like if you have a more traditional language teaching environment, you have the tests, the scores, right? You have moving from one level to the next, and so on. With language coaching, the learner decides when they have achieved their goal. Okay, that's slightly different. Now, I'm sure that a lot of you are already using exit slips or like exit tickets, and these are also coaching tools. Depending on the way you word the question, of course, but most of the time, they actually are coaching tools. They help the learner focus either on the learning process or on the result. Okay. Now, I am ready for your questions. We still have some time, and I would be happy to answer them if you have them.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. To be honest, it's just good portion of food for thought for me. And I'm thinking about everything now. I was kind of, the ideas about scaling were playing on my mind while I was listening to you. And yes, I think we can remove your presentation and we can go to the Q&A part. And we have questions here.
That's great.
So first of all, I'd like you to look at this comment because I think it's kind of nice to see that people are sharing. Yeah, that sometimes for scaling they can use from a 1 to 5. Like, what do you think about it? Is it a good way for those who is just starting, for example, with this?
I mean, with coaching, anything that works for your learner is a good thing to use. I mean, if it works for you, if it makes you feel comfortable, right? If it's more convenient, easier, then why not? Yeah, I think that's great.
Thank you. And here is the question from Marina.
Okay, scaling and the age. Right. Of course, you cannot use the whole toolkit, the coaching toolkit, with young children, but scaling can be used with kids. I mean, you don't necessarily need numbers. You can have, like traffic lights, red, yellow, and green, and then you ask the kids, how happy are you with your test results? How excited are you about today's lesson? That's also scaling. And then if the kids say, okay, that they are not excited, that like, let's say red is bad, right? A sad face when you have red, for example. And you ask, oh, so you're not excited about today's lesson. What can make this lesson exciting for you? and they give you some ideas, and there's some discussion. So with scaling, I mean, you can play a lot with it.
Yeah, thank you. I can imagine that it's possible. So I really like this idea, and I have some ideas how I can implement it exactly tomorrow. At least I want to give it a try. And I understand it's not that easy. It's not that easy not to guide, but to ask those questions out of curiosity. I don't know how it's possible or how much time it would take me to learn how to control myself. Because what we know, we elicit, we guide, we support as usual. So how not to do it? I think it's kind of a challenging thing. Okay,
It definitely is. Right, age level, personality for a person. Yeah, language coaching versus language teaching. Again, as I mentioned, with children, you would probably use only elements of language coaching, and you wouldn't use them often. A little bit, like scaling. Yeah, scaling can be used. Open questions can be used, but you wouldn't have like a coaching discussion. You wouldn't have the complete cycle. With teenagers, you can use more, but again, not all the time and not the full cycle. You can use a lot of coaching with grown-ups who already know what their goals are. Then it's very easy. I mean, when a person comes and has a more or less clear vision of their language learning goals, then you can have a very nice coaching conversation. Again, it's good for people who are ready to take the responsibility for their learning, or at least share this responsibility with their teacher, their coach. But it's not going to work for people who do not want to make decisions. And I'm sure lots of teachers have had such students who just say, okay, you are the teacher, you decide. Right.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. So we have some questions here, actually.
Yeah. Okay. When the learner has a question about grammar, you change roles. Exactly. Exactly. When you see that you need to teach, you do the teaching job. That's why we have this language coaching, and we say that they are two separate activities, right? And they can both take place in the same classroom, and you just change the hats. When you need to coach, you are the coach. When you need to teach, you are the teacher. I mean, you cannot explain grammar by asking questions if it's a new piece of grammar, right? You have to become a teacher. You can do it in a more coaching way. Of course, for example, if the student wants to know more about, let's say, present perfect, you can start by asking them, what do you already know about this tense? Okay, can you give me examples? When would you use this example that you just gave me? Okay, so, and then you summarize. So you already know about the formation of this tense, and you already know that you can use this in certain cases. Maybe you know something else. So you get the information from the learner first. And then when you see that they really need more, you give it as a teacher. And the way you give it will depend on your learner and your preferences. I hope I answered that.
Yeah, thanks. Let's go to the next one.
How to understand what model or what tool to use. Being present, being fully focused on your learner and on the process. And then intuition. What can help? I think peer coaching can help a lot when two language coaches meet. It doesn't have to be like one experienced, one not. It can be both, just learning this coaching, and you practice, and you'll feel what you need to do. It just takes time. Coaching is something that cannot be learned from a book. It's practical. You have to see it. You have to be part of it to learn how to do it.
Yeah, great. Next one. What do you think?
Okay, the learners just want to talk about their life. Yeah, that is true. As a coach, what you can do at the start of the session, of the lesson, you could say that, all right, so today we have 60 minutes together. What is your goal for this session, for this lesson? What would you like to achieve? If you have planned something during the previous sessions, you could mention that, okay, during the previous sessions, we planned that today we are going to cover this topic. Is this still relevant for you today? Or maybe you have something other that you want to discuss. Let the student decide. And when you see that the student is going into the wrong direction, you could just say that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but are you okay? Is this okay for you? I noticed you're talking about a different topic. That's not the topic of our lessons. It's okay for me if you keep talking about your life in English. But just let me remind you that this was not the goal of the session, and let the student decide what they want. I mean, sometimes, and I know I've had students like that. They say, okay, the goals can wait. I just need to talk about this and I need to do this in English. And all right, fine. So we'll go back to that goal later. With exit slips, if you cannot do that, I mean, it's always a good idea to finish the session at least by one question. So what is the outcome of this session for you? What are you leaving the lesson with? Just one idea, one feeling, one word you learned, anything. And that would be enough. Again, you have the plan, but if it's coaching, you have the intention.
Yeah, okay, I have my question. You said, so with one thing, just name one thing, but being a coach, would you restrict it to something like with one adjective, with one noun, or whatever? They should come up with whatever. Because for me, it's like, okay, it would be nice if they could say something like 3 adjectives they heard today or they learned today, or something like that. Do you think that we shouldn't restrict like that and give them express their emotions, or what? What's the right way to ask this question?
I mean, what would be the right way for you? What do you think?
As a teacher?
Yeah.
As a teacher, I would say something like keeping in mind differentiation as well. I would say at least 3, I don't know, vocabulary pieces. Something like that.
Yeah. And why not combine the teaching and the coaching approach? And ask 2 questions like, okay, so we are done with our lesson, but what 3 adjectives have you learned today? This is great. And what are you leaving the session with? Okay. So not in terms of language learning, but in terms of something different.
It's for me, it sounds, at least so far, it's like more personal development.
Yeah. And vague. It sounds a bit vague. And some people say, I don't know. What do you want? What do you want me to say? Right? But they get there.
Yeah. So the question is from Turkey.
A coaching unit. That is such a good question. You know, I don't have a clear answer to this, but what I know that in certain language schools, they have a language coach who is not doing teaching, who's just doing the coaching part. And I mean, it's a very it's a new thing. Language coaching is new, and there are no clear answers to such questions. It's still on the stage of development, experiments, and it would be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm just curious, Pinar, if you can type it in the chat box. What's your idea? And also those who are watching us, please just share what do you think. Do you think we need to have a separate language coaching unit? Just as an idea. We are not deciding it here.
Yeah.
And so far, the last question.
Nice. If I were approached with this question, I would say, so you've come to me, and how can I help you? Right. So, I mean, the students come, especially grown-up students, they come to teachers, they have expectations. It's a good idea to know what their expectations are. And when you start coaching, and if you start coaching and ask questions, you'll see that even students who say this, they eventually open up. And yeah, they manage to set their own goals. It's difficult. Sometimes it's very difficult, but it's possible when you dig those goals out of them, one question at a time.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Pinar has just answered about this separate unit for language coaching. So, from her perspective, it should exist. Yeah, cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to finish the session because we're running out of time. And I'm adding to the screen your Nataliya presentation because I know that the last slide has the information about you and how to find you.
Yes, right here.
Yeah. And so you can read about Nataliya, and also you can find her definitely on social media. And I probably, if you allow me, I will include your email address, how to contact you after this session if people still have questions. And I have a question.
Yes.
The last one, I promise. I'm sorry. For example, let's say if I need a personal session with you as a language teacher who wants to have some kind of transition to language coaching, can I have that? I mean, not.
Yeah.
I mean, we can have people here who would like to ask this question. So, can people knock on your door and ask for this kind of counseling?
Yes, definitely. And I'll see what I can do. And if I can help, I will help. But if I see that I cannot help, I'll try my best to find someone who can in my circle, for sure. For sure. I see more and more people transitioning, at least partly, into coaching. Once they understand that it's not about psychology, it's about orienting towards future goals and helping your student reach them. They are looking for new tools.
Yeah, thank you, Marina. Just noticed so many people here, and some of them are just familiar. Can we say familiar faces? But I can't see any. Yeah. And so nice. I haven't seen so many of you for such a long time. Yeah.
Eva, I just want to thank you for this fantastic opportunity to share my knowledge, to share what I believe in. Thank you. And I really, really hope that this overview, because it was just a very short overview of coaching tools, helps people. And I wish all of you the best of luck. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you have any kind of feedback, please share on your social media. Tag Nataliya, tag me, please. You can find me on tsel.ua on Instagram or on my personal page, and then I will do it myself. I will redirect to my account. I hope, to be honest, I'm sure it was helpful. And thank you so much, Nataliya, for everything you've done, because I have a lot to think about. I'm pretty sure it's the same for all those who participated today. And the recording will be available tomorrow. You will get a follow-up email with the link. You can save it and watch it whenever you want. Also, I'll add a certificate for those who need a certificate. Yeah, then you can use it. You just will have to type your name there. Yeah, and as we promised, it will be a presentation from Nataliya, as well as a list of materials which you can use. A list, not materials, yeah, a list of materials where you can find more information and dig deeper into it. Yeah, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We are done. And By the way, see you soon. I would like to remind you, if you haven't seen it yet, we have started onboarding process for the conference Teacher's Voice Teaching for Peace. And Nataliya and Carrie, they will be presenters there as well, by the way. So I haven't sent any emails about it yet because I didn't want to have any kind of overlapping with this webinar. So probably starting from the next week, you will be getting emails about this marathon where we will have more than 25 speakers from different parts of the world. And today I've got confirmation about amazing presentations we are going to have. And yeah, please stay tuned. And I think we'll have a lot of things to do soon. Thank you and have a wonderful evening. See you.
See ya.